4, 3. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk, where today's topic is prospect to cache and dual write. My name is Evan, and I will be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this web conference through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. Today's web conference is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation, and by participating in this session using Microsoft Teams, your name, email address, phone number, and/or title may be viewable by other session participants. If you do not consent to being a part of a recorded session, please disconnect at this time. The recording of this event will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions throughout and at the end of the presentation. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Now, on to the event. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Toby James, Senior R&D Solution Architect, Severin Bach, R&D Solution Architect, and Pedro Sacramento, Senior Fast Track Solution Architect. Toby, over to you.
Great, thanks, Evan. Okay, so kicking off today, what we're looking to get out of today is we want to describe the prospect to cache process in the context of dual write. Through that process, we'll look at some of the key implementation considerations, and also we're going to provide a demonstration of the prospect to cache capability. Now, this Tech Talk is not covering a lot of the core dual write capabilities. We did do a Tech Talk recently on this, so if you haven't already seen that, you should check that out. And we won't be covering any other business processes outside of prospect to cache, other than looking at a bit at product information management. From an agenda perspective, we're splitting this into 3 key areas. So prospect to cache process with dual write. This is where we'll focus on, I guess, the theory aspects, and we'll look at each of the sub-processes within prospect to cache, and in doing that, look at how the data is flowing between the systems. As I mentioned, we'll do a demonstration, and where we have time and we have remaining questions, we will answer them at the end. So getting straight into it. So as we go through this, here's a scenario to think about in the context of this presentation. So Contoso Entertainment System is a manufacturer, distributor, installer of home electronic equipment. From a sales perspective, they have sales managers that work exclusively in Dynamics 365 sales, and they're responsible for generating leads and opportunities. They'll create and maintain accounts and contacts, as well as create quotes for product sales and installations. Now, if those quotes are successful, they will look at creating orders from those quotes. From a pricing perspective, pricing and discounts are maintained in supply chain management, and this is considered the single source of truth for all pricing and discounts. Order fulfillment is also performed in supply chain management by various people across the organization. And from a finance perspective, this is leveraging Dynamics 365 Finance. So think of payments and then cash bank management as supporting processes. So from an end-to-end process view, we have Alice, who's our sales manager, and she is working in Dynamics 365 sales. So you'll see here the sales is represented by the blue color and finance and operations apps by the purple. In this picture, we see that contact creation and customer creation, as well as quotes and orders, can be created either in finance and operations or sales. For the purposes of most of this presentation, the sales manager function will work exclusively in sales. As we move through the order process, we have order confirmation, picking, packing, shipping, and invoicing of those orders, all fulfilled, all performed in finance and operations. We maintain the state of the order between the applications, and then when the order is paid for and we receipt those payments, that's performed in finance and operations. However, that is not a process that's connected to sales. We have some other processes that support this one around product creation, and where our AR personnel in finance and operations may perform a credit check. From Alice's perspective as well, the lead creation and opportunity management is performed in sales. That is not a connected process with finance and operations either. If we look at this from a data flow perspective, starting on the left-hand side, we have accounts and contacts in sales. And in finance and operations, these are represented as customers and contact person. With very much from a relationship perspective, the relationship between accounts and contacts in sales is very much the same in finance and operations, with the exception where we have a person in finance and operations who is a customer. So we can sell to either organizations or persons. They will be represented in sales as a contact. That also, those flows are bidirectional in that I think of multi-master scenarios or where you need to maintain information across both systems. From a product perspective, these are maintained exclusively in finance and operations and pushed through to sales. On the release product, there's also a price that can be set, and that will be maintained as a price against a price list in sales. If we look at the quote process, this is again a bidirectional sync. The end-to-end process of quotes or quote creation maintenance can be performed in either application. And with orders, it's really mostly the creation of the order and any immediate maintenance activities. But as soon as it kicks into order confirmation and fulfillment, then that's where finance and operations really kicks in from a maintenance and state management perspective. When our orders are ready to be invoiced, those invoices are posted in finance and operations and pushed through to sales. And in sales, these invoices are read-only. Invoices can't be created or edited in sales. We also see here the sales pricing, which is a service that the quote and order processes can leverage, and that's calling the supply chain management pricing engine. So we'll get into that a little later as well. So getting into accounts, customers, and contacts. So if we look at this from a business process perspective, we have again, starting off with the lead creation and the creating of the opportunity. This is happening in sales. At that point, there wasn't any connectivity with finance and operations. It's not until we start creating accounts that the data starts flowing between the systems. And again, when we start creating contacts, where those contacts are related to those accounts and not sellable, that data is going to flow as well. And again, we see this scenario where the customer in finance and operations is a person, so that synchronizes to a contact in sales. From a product maintenance perspective, so this is a view of the product model in sales. It's relatively simple, and that's really because it's focusing on what it needs to do from a sales perspective. As we get into finance and operations or the supply chain management capability, we see a lot of complexity is introduced. Now, if you can't read this, that's okay. I'm kind of making a point here, in that there's, from a product maintenance and modeling perspective in the supply chain management solution, there is a lot of complexity, a lot of tables, a lot of relationships there. But where we get to, or what benefit we have in that application is we get to leverage the data entity construct, which is an abstraction, provides an abstraction of that underlying implementation to create this more simplified view. And this is where this is what dual write can leverage to simplify those integration scenarios. So from a product information management perspective, in finance and operations, we have two different product subtypes. We have the product subtype, so these are distinct products when they're released. Or we have the product master subtype, so these, when they're released, are product variants. So think, a T-shirt that has different sizes and colors. So if we look at the flow for a product subtype, we are creating the product. That's triggering this integration here with all products. And then when we release those products to legal entities, we are also triggering these two flows. And really the key entity here in sales is the product entity. So for every one of these products per legal entity, there will be one product there. Now, if that product has a base sales price set, that will trigger a plugin in sales to go and create or update a price list item, so that there's no historical information that's maintained there in sales, much like the model in finance and operations for this field. If it's changed, it's then that change, it flows through to sales and is maintained there as well. From a product master subtype, we see here the creation of products is much the same. In this example, you can see a boy's T-shirt that has product dimension, group of size and color. So it starts off much the same as the other scenario. And when we start adding the variants and configuring those, we have these additional flows that kick in. So this example shows just depicts the color entities flowing, but as you can imagine, it supports size, style configuration. And then when we release the products to the legal entity, again, we have these other flows that kick in. The key difference here is that because this is a product variant, at the product that's maintained in sales is at that variant level. So for any given product master, per legal entity, there could be multiple products, one for each variant. Product categories are also supported. So these in the sales application are write-in products. You may be familiar in quotations and orders. In finance and operations, these are sales categories. So you can have a sales category against the sales line by itself without an item, or you can have an item and it defaults as the category for reporting or other purposes. So from a product category maintenance perspective, we are creating those product categories in finance and operations. The category hierarchy. We're then associating that hierarchy to the sales category hierarchy role. And again, data is flowing from finance and operations through to sales at this point as well. We're configuring this hierarchy, right? So each of those category nodes, as we configure those, the data is also flowing. And then if we need to associate those to a product in finance and operations, those product category assignments or associations also flow through. So this was the scenario I mentioned before, where when you select the item on the order, you do want to default a category for that item. So unit of measure and unit of measure conversions, these are also supported flows. So units more or less line up between the two applications, with the difference where we have this unit group in sales and there's no equivalent entity or data construct in finance and operations. There is a unit of measure class enum. So there's a plugin there to support that data flow. And then for product specific unit conversion and unit conversion, there are entities and entity maps to support the synchronization of that information as well. Now moving on to the transactional side of the business process. So this is quotes, orders, and invoices. So the quotation process, fairly straightforward. We're creating a quote. We're going to add products to those to the quote. We can choose an existing product, or where it's a write-in product, we would choose a product category. If we're leveraging the supply chain management pricing engine, we can price the quote. We activate the quote. At that point, it will become read-only in sales. Now, where we need to revise the quote, it's then going to become editable in sales, and we can make changes. If we win the quote, that's when we can create the order from the quote, and that's going to copy all the relevant order information over to a new order. Otherwise, we can close the quote and the process ends there. From a data modeling perspective, this is quite simple and should be somewhat familiar in header and lines construct. As I've mentioned before, this is a bi-directional sync, so the end-to-end process can be performed in either application. From an order perspective, whether the order is being created from a quote or it's being created as a new order in sales, it starts off much the same as the quotation process, in that we're creating the order, adding products to the order, we're going to price the order, and really from that point on, once the order has been set up, confirmation, picking, packing, and invoicing is going to happen in supply chain management. So the data model for orders, much the same as the quotation, header lines, and bidirectional sync. With the exception of, I should say, processing status. So this is as the order goes through the different states, through that confirmation, picking, packing, invoicing. There's processing status that is pushed from finance and operations through to sales. And this is what I'll go into now, a little bit about the state changes from an order workflow perspective. So from a workflow perspective, each of the key statuses, more or less, the applications line up with each other, right from the creation of the order through to invoicing, and there is the option to cancel the order as well. So when we create the order in finance and operations, for example, we have these document status and an order status. That is deriving a processing status, which flows through to sales. When the order is initially created, each application is going to set those default states. In sales, we have status and status reason, which are standard state fields for sales. And then we have this additional processing status, which has been introduced through the dual write solution. So creation, initial state is defaulted. And when we start to work through to confirmation, that's when the state changes start to happen. So on the processing status, we'll see confirmed, and then the status and status reasons start updating. When we go through the pick and pack, the various states flow through again to fulfilled, complete, and we have these different processing statuses, and then for invoicing as well. Now, cancellation, that's another process that occurs in finance and operations. You cannot cancel orders in sales where you've got this integrated scenario. So that button that would normally be there is not. So some considerations for quotes and orders. Now, these are not exhaustive, but a couple of key ones here. The number sequence configuration, because these are bi-directional sync, there is no global number sequencing system. Each application has its own number sequencing. So you need to ensure that these number sequences are not going to clash or overlap. I mentioned that orders can't be cancelled in sales. And for quotes and sales orders in sales, they need to contain products that originate from supply chain management. So you couldn't synchronize a product that was created directly in sales. And obviously with this, you've also got the write-in products, so you need to specify a sales category if in sales you choose a write-in product. Invoicing, the data model here is quite straightforward as well. Header lines, and with this one we're pushing data from finance and operations through to sales. It doesn't come back the other way. Some considerations for invoices, and I've mentioned this, that invoices cannot be created in sales or edited in sales. The partial invoicing scenario, so this might be a part shipment scenario where you invoice on shipment, or any other scenario where you've got, say, one order and you need to split that across multiple invoices. So that scenario is fully supported, and the header lines information will flow as expected, including those relationships. The summary update scenario, or a scenario where you have multiple sales orders that need to consolidate under one invoice. For this scenario, the data will flow as expected from invoicing and reflect the invoice in sales accurately, just with one exception here is the relationships to those orders. It will only hold the relationship to the invoice on one of the orders. So not all of those not all of those orders will have the relationship to that invoice. So from a pricing on-hand inventory and ATP perspective, so there are two pricing methods in sales that you can leverage. So I'll use this simple example to demonstrate. So if we're creating an order, when we add products to the order, at that point it's going to default a static product price, and this is coming from the item price list, and that'll be defaulted on the line. If we are using the supply chain management pricing engine, there's a function there to price the order, and we would click that. If we're not, and the pricing changes, or we need to get updated prices from sales, we click recalculate order to get those. So with the item price list, I've gone through most of these. As I mentioned, it's defaulted on the order. Sorry, the order and the quote when you create the product or the line, and that can be set in supply chain management as well against the release product. The pricing engine in supply chain management. So this is a user-initiated process using the price quote and price order buttons, and you can see these in these screenshots here. When that is initiated, it makes a service call to finance and operations to get the real-time or the accurate pricing that leverages the trade and sales agreements. Supply chain management pricing, and that comes back and populates the various information on the order or the quotation, and we'll demonstrate this as well. There are some limitations to this at the moment, in that charges and charge allocations are not available in sales. Retail pricing has some limitations, and discounts for trade allowance management is not currently considered. Inventory on hand, so this is where in sales, we want to get an idea of what inventory we have for a given item. This can be initiated from the product, the quote, or the order pages itself. It's going to retrieve the on-hand inventory for that given product. It gets it from supply chain management. Important to note with this scenario, there are a couple of entity maps that need to be enabled to facilitate this. However, those entity maps are used to facilitate that sort of request response. These are not synchronizing inventory on hand between the two systems. Now, with available to promise, so this is where we want to know what quantity of an item is available to be promised to a customer on a specific date. So this is going to leverage the native capability in supply chain management. As you can see in the right-hand side screenshot, this shows what's available in supply chain management. And the other screenshot there is showing what comes back in sales. So this is triggered on the line in sales, and it makes the various service calls to get that information. So again, this particular scenario, this leverages the on-hand entries and inventory on-hand request entity maps. So it's important that they're enabled, and at the same time, this is not synchronizing data. It's making a call into F&O to get the relevant information and then surfacing it in sales. And with that, I will now hand over to Severin to begin the demo.
Awesome. Thank you, Toby, for this introduction. So let me quickly get the screen. And before I go into the process, I like to show you a little bit what mappings we have. So this is DualWrite. And again, as mentioned by Toby in the beginning, I'm not going to show you DualWrite fundamentals, how to adding environments, how to configuring, and what is a mapping and that kind of things. We will go and focus on the process execution only. But to understand, how you're going to configure process to cache, it's important to know that the process flows Toby showed you, it's not like you have one single mapping you're activating and then the whole P2C flow is running. You really have a set of mappings you need to activate. So let's assume, or let's have a look. We go here searching for sales. It's just a simple example. And we do see, oh, okay, we do have here mapping for sales order header, sales order lines, sales quotation headers, sales quotation lines, invoice text groups, invoice header, invoice lines. So the information we need to link the flow is there. The mappings are available, and you need to pick and choose your mappings which are required to fulfill the customer's requirements. So that's important to know. Okay, so this is enabled in this test environment, and with that quick intro, I'd like to overhand to my CE colleague from sales. Pedro, would you like to kick off the process?
Yes, thank you, Severin. I will share my screen. And hopefully by now you can see it. Can you confirm, Severin?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we will start the demo, and Toby was just presenting how the business process can start, and in sales can typically start with a lead, but because the lead will automatically create the account and the contact and the opportunity, we will start by creating those separately just to see how those look in F&O as well, and to enrich that data with some additional information. So I will start by creating an account in sales. And the first thing with DualWrite, that a new feature that is introduced with DualWrite is the company concept. So you need to identify, that's the first thing that you need to identify, is what is the company that we are working with. So in this case, we will select this one. So this is kind of a concept to align between sales and finance and operations. And then, of course, putting the information about the account. So I will go ahead and put DW service GmbH as the name of the account. I will need, as Toby has also mentioned, I need to put an account number. So this information, in this case, because I'm creating it from sales, sales will take control over creating the account numbers. If you need to align between both C and F&O, then you need to take care of consolidating the account numbers so that you have the same approach. If this account would be created from F&O, then the account number would be created following the finance and operation functionality. Then the other thing is identifying what is the relationship type, and this is also a new concept with DualWrite. In CE, or in sales, you have accounts and you have contacts. You can sell to both, but typically the most common scenarios will be to sell to an account and work throughout the sales process with the contact. Because in finance and operation, we can have also sell to both. And here we start introducing these concepts and also the alignment with legal entities and vendor entities. So we have to select what type of account am I creating. And in this case, for the sales business process, it would be a customer, okay? Whenever I select the customer as a relationship type, then I need to put the customer group ID. This is some information that comes from finance and operation as well. I will put 10, which is wholesale customer. And my currency is euro. So I will work, because this is a German company, then I will work with euros. Then the next step, and I did saw a question about this in the chat window. It's about addresses. So in sales, we do have the address fields. We have several addresses, but it's kind of open text. You can add some information, and what we also see is that you can, of course, customize the system and put in place your own logic or your own controls to avoid that we put some information that it's not according with what they expected. With dual write, that information also is validated with the controls that exist in finance and operation. So I will put here an address. And I will identify the city and the zip code. I will not put too much detail, but at least the basic, and also the country. And I will save it. If any of this information doesn't exist in finance and operation, then I would get an error in return, and I would need to fix this information. In this case, the information was already saved. This means that this record should have been created also in finance and operation the moment that I click on save. And with this, then Severin, you can take the presentation back and further enrich this account with some more details.
Yes, let me do that. So I'm taking over the sharing, and I will go and give you my finance and operations environment again. So here we are. So imagine this could be, you could work, for example, with a Power Automate notification. So when you like to get a notification that a customer is created, you're receiving an email or whatever you're choosing as a destination, and then I go and search for the customer. So here's the customer Pedro just created, and there was a question in the chat. It's really an synchronous integration. So that means the transaction which is starting in CE is going to be handed over to F&O. Then the validation is starting in F&O, and only if the validation F&O is okay and the record is okay in F&O, then then the commitment will happen on both applications. So as soon as validation failed in F&O, the error message will be visible in CE. So for example, when you have the address validation enabled in finance operations, that you would only like to work with zip codes which are existing, right? And yet you're typing in a zip code in CE which is not available in F&O. That validation will fail during the saving, and you will get an error message in customer engagement or in sales that, oh, I tried to enter a zip code which is not available. So really both applications with the logic and validations come together with dual write. Okay, so here's my customer. I have a look to it. And normally what is happening, I do like to enrich my customer here. A typical example would be, okay, I need to put in some credit and collection informations. And with this example, I'm just dropping here a credit limit. Let's be okay. Let's put them 100,000 credit limit for this new account. You could use which functionality of every credit limit things you have in F&O. So when you have a customizations who is automatically putting credit limits, or if you're using defaulting functionalities, that all can work, right? In this case, I'm just doing it manual. The next thing is what I like to do is I like to take care about the payment, the terms of payment. So I like to have that account being on 30 days net. And another example would be that I go and really take care that the taxes are getting calculated in the right way. So therefore, I'm going to choose here the accounts receivables domestic sales tax groups. Okay, so I could choose different things, you know, what I like, but for this example, I think it's okay to demo what DoWrite is doing. So to that, I'm going to save, and now you see the saving dialog is opening, and as soon the dialog is done, the commitment is happened in customer engagement apps as well. Okay, so this is the DoWrite integration. This is how the integration is enabled between the applications. So I'm done with my work. The customer has a credit limit. We got the net 30, and now Pedro, would you like to continue with the sales process?
Sure. Yep. Let me regain control. And back in C. So thank you. Back in the account. So I will just hit refresh on the account. And if I go to my accounting tab, then I should see the information that's having just populated from finance and operations. So now I can see that there is a credit limit. I can also add it, and it will trigger back the update in F&O, in finance and operation. I also see that he added the tax group and the payments term. So I have my account enriched with further information that typically comes from finance. Then the account is created. So the account will be the company that I'm going to sell to, and I will go and create a contact. And the contact will be, again, like I was explaining before, will be just a person that I will work with during the sales process. Okay, so it will not be a sellable contact. So I will not be selling to this contact, but it will be the person that I will be speaking about this opportunity. And it normally is actually the person that initiated the request, either by contacting us by phone or by sending an email, whatever channel. I can associate this contact with an account. Okay, it could also be a contact that works with different accounts, but in this case, I'm associating with an account. I will not put addresses or any information like this. This is already added to the account. I will put an email address so that I can, for example, send emails. Just putting here some fake email address, and that's it. I will save the contact because I already have some. Actually, I can see here this is a default engine from sales. If there is a similar record with similar content, then I will see this information. But in this case, it's safe for me to ignore and save. The contact will be created, and after the contact is created, then I can go into to creating the opportunity. So I have an account, I have a contact, I can go to the opportunity. The opportunity is kind of just a placeholder or a record that will hold all of the orders, quotes, and invoices that I will create as part of this process. So normally we need to identify a topic. So it's just for easy tracking. I will put here the name of the account, DW Service GmbH. And in this case, I already know that the customer is asking for a standard speaker. So I'll just type here standard speaker, just for me to identify, because of course, there may be other opportunities for this account as well. I will put here the contact that I'm working with. So here we go. And then I'll put the account. I also can put here some more information. For example, what is the purchase time frame? And this is all mostly information that will help me identify my open opportunities, my sales pipeline. So I can further enrich this if I have that information, or I can ask that information from the person that I'm working with. In this case, let's just say that they will want to buy this immediately. And I also can put, if of course this information is available, I can put here the budget. I can put what is the purchase process, if it's individual, a committee, or if it's something that I don't know. So I can enrich this further. And the last thing that I need to identify is, again, the company. Okay, so in this case, it's the EMF, so the German company. I will not put, I'm ready, I will create, this will not trigger any request in finance and operation. I could add here some products, but because the pricing will come from finance and operation, then I will not put it as part of the opportunity because the opportunity doesn't integrate with finance and operation anyway. So the next step here, before we jump into the quote, would be to prepare my products to this customer because it's a new customer. So I would send it back to Severin so that he can work on the products and applying the discounts and all.
Cool, let's do that. So the beauty of F&O is that F&O has a very rich functionality of handling prices. So we do have trade agreements in place, for example. We do have base prices in place, which you can set up on the product by itself. But for this scenario, I really like to show you the trade agreement functionalities. And for that account, it's just the new customer we created. I go and set up a new trade agreement. Let's take a journal, do price adjustments. We like to get it done for sales, and that's a line discount. I'm sorry about that. Using the price. So let's have a look. Here's our price journal line. We are just going to have here to create our I think it was 10, 20, something like that. Here we go. Right, that was our account. And I'm choosing the product which Pedro liked to sell. So I'm using the standard speaker. In this demo, we're not going to create a new product. We decided to use a product which you already have. The process how to create a product and how the mapping is working, it's good documented in the demo. So therefore, I'm just picking a product. Okay, this is our new product. Let me finalize the setup here. Okay, we like to put a price of 250. I think that's a good one for this. We have euros, and that's the sales price. What I like to do next is I really like to have a line discounts as well, because this product is something which we are selling quite a lot. So let's say as soon as we have a 10 quantity, we're selling 10 pieces. We like to get a line discount of 5%. Okay, so that's good. And the next thing is because this customer is a very good customer, and we like to make business with him. We like to grant him a total discount of an additional 1%. Okay, so this is my pricing idea I have. I'm saving the records here. We have total discounts, we have line discounts, we have a normal sales price for that account, for this item, and we do have here 250 and some percentages discounts. Now I'm going to post the trade agreements. And with that, we are set up. We do have a customer, we do have a product, we do have a price trade agreements in place, which is driving price calculations for us. And Pedro, I kindly ask you to continue.
Sure. Let me take control. And back into the opportunity in sales. So we can go into the quotes and create a new quote from here. So one of the features that using opportunities is that if I do that at the opportunity level, when I create the quotes from an opportunity, all of that information will already be filled in. And here at this point, then I can go and add the product. So I will click here, add product, and go and select my standard. Here. I will just leave quantity as 1. And before I move forward, let me just fill in here the invoice customer. In this case, it's going to be the same. So if I want to invoice to a separate customer, then I can put that information here. If it's the same, I can just update with the same information. And as soon as I'm ready, then I can go and click on price quote. And basically what this will do is going to fetch all of the information about pricing from finance and operations. So I don't need to bring all of that data into sales. I can just click the button and everything gets calculated from finance and operations. So this is the information that I got, but because we saw that Severin added a few conditions, so I will just put here quantity as 11, save it, and then hit on price quote again. And I should have here the information updated. So it keeps updating this information based on what was added in finance and operations and all of the rules that that exist there. As soon as I'm ready, then I can, when we create a quote, then the quote is in draft. We can see here in the bottom left. As soon as I'm satisfied with, or that I finish my work and I'm satisfied with the quote, then I can go ahead and activate the quote. So this will basically put my quote into active mode, and I can go as well and email my customer with the quote details, right? So this can be also done as part of the sales process. I can basically just hit this button and then send my quote to the customer. I will not send it right now because, of course, this is a dummy account as well. So going back to the quote, I have my quote ready. I've added the pricing and all. If I want to provide more details to my customer, for example, if I have on-hand inventory, or if I need to go and purchase additional units, I can click here. And Severin, do you want to comment on this, the on-hand inventory?
Sorry. Yes, absolutely. So that's the on-hand functionality we have. Mm-hmm. So due to the fact it's a header functionality, we need to filter here for the standard speaker to see which product we like to the customer is requesting. And here we see, okay, that's the current on stock we have for that product for the specific warehouse and inventory dimensions. Yes, and you can see we have a lot of things on stock, so we can go and confirm to the customer. Keep in mind that's not data which is replicated from F&O into sales. This is a query we got for that product from CEE or from sales into finance and operations. So keep in mind we do not, or nobody like to replicate inventory data from finance operations. So that's the lookup functionality to inventory on hand. Thanks, Pedro. The next thing is you really like to understand, what is the available to promise dates, right? When we can ship things, when the customer can expect the product, and again, that's a query from sales to F&O, where we're asking the ATP information for this specific product. The functionality sits here on the line. Therefore, we do not need to filter on something. It's just pre-filtered on the standard speaker product we set up. So here we see, okay, what are the available things when we can deliver what quantities, and yeah, that's it. So a nice functionality.
Yep.
Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you as well, Severin. So basically what we have here is, as part of the quoting process, I'm happy. I'm ready to provide my customer with the quote, but also I can check in real time if I do have the on-hand inventory and when I can satisfy this this quote, and I can provide that information to the customer as well. And I could put it, for example, in the email that I previously showed. As soon as I'm ready, so the quote is activated, I send it. Now, assuming that the customer is okay with all the conditions, I can go ahead and create the order, and basically I can type here some description saying customer is happy with pricing and discounts, something like this, and I will click OK. And what this process does is it will automatically create an order from that quote and also trigger that creation process in finance and operations. Severin, do you want to take over and show how this looks in finance and operation?
Absolutely. So as soon a process is executed in sales, like the conversion from a quote into an order, so I will be able to find the quote here as well. So when I go click on quotations, I see that the customer now has a quotation. But I go and show you the sales order directly. So here we see, let's take a look to all sales orders. Here it is. We see that is the order Pedro created. Here we do have the same sales order ID he's using in sales. And with that, I can go and have a look. If I like, I can change something so I can work on data, and it gets synchronized back to sales as soon as the fields are inside the mapping. For example, I can choose some head informations. I can enrich my sales order again with some comments, like and I can just test, save this record. You see that the same behavior, the sales order header, you're entering data, you're saving it, and then the CE record is updated as well. So Pedro, would you like to continue? Show us the order in sales.
Yes, let me take control. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, I'm back with the order in CE or in sales, and let me just click here on price order, and here we go. So basically, what I've just did is the order, it gets kind of it gets locked, right? It creates an order here in sales, but the process is moving to finance and operation. So if I still need and want to update like the header of the order, I can just follow the same process as I did in the quote and click on price order, and it brings all of the data here. And I still have, of course, all the order here to see what is the current status. I can see that is currently active. And the next step would be in finance and operation to do the pick and packaging, right? So Severin, do you want to do that? And then I show how it will look here in sales after that process is completed?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So let me just get the sharing. Okay. You should now see my screen again, and that's my sales order. And I can really start now to execute the work in F&O. So I have the sales order in place, and I can go and generate the picking list we need for our workers in the warehouse. Okay. And as soon as the picking list is there, the next thing is that we need to go into the warehouse and we need to do the picking. That parts are out. So here we just doing update now. Normally the guys now running and we're using the WMS device we have available where you can use that things on the mobile device. But to make it quick here, I'm just using my F&O browser. So now the picking list is posted. The next thing will be that I need to go and post the packing slip. So this is the posting right now. And what you will see is that in CE or in sales you have a processing status. So on each action I'm doing here, you will see that I have now a status delivered, and the sales process tracking status is going to be delivered as well. So you will see on the statuses what is the current status on the order. You do not need to go and move into finance or move into supply chain management to see what is happening with that order. Okay. So and the next thing is really that we need to post the invoice. So and the invoice is something which could be manual activity, but it really depends on the customer's business. So normally there would be a batch job at night, or we have a daily batch job, or you're just we're trying to automate things. But in this case, I'm doing it manual. I'm clicking here to generate an invoice, so that invoice is going to be sent out to the customer, and then the sales order is invoiced, and I can now go to the customer, and I will see an open transaction, and then the normal payment execution process will happen, right? When the customer is sending us money, or we have a direct debit transactions on SEPA. So both things are possible, but that's purely F&O functionality. For us, it's interesting to see, you know, the sales order is invoiced, and we like to see what happened in sales. So Pedro, could you please show us what happened?
Yes. So back in sales, going back to the order, I had clicked on, I had hit refresh once, and it changed to picked while Severin was doing the picking. If I go and hit refresh once again, before it was invoiced, it would appear as delivered, and now it's invoiced because Severin already created the invoice. So just to mention that all of those steps will be reflected here on the processing status. So like Severin was saying, I don't need to go into F&O to understand the status. The status is updated back into sales. And then I can see also the invoice itself. So I can go from the order to the invoices, and I can see that there is a related invoice with this order, and I can actually open it and see all the information that is included in it. So this kind of is the process end-to-end from the very first stage of contacting the customer and creating the opportunity until I have an invoice in my system and across both systems, sales and finance and operation. Over to you, Severin.
Cool, and I think that's it for our demo. So you saw how the processes are now aligned to each other. That data is flying between. That we are starting to create, you know, query possibilities from sales into F&O. That you really can use which functionalities we have in place. So the next thing would be that we quickly have a look to the Q&A. I can see there are a lot of questions, so I'm not sure if we are able to answer all of the questions. But what we do is, since some weeks, is that we are going to share a Q&A specifically for the TechTalk inside the community page, so that you can have a look to the questions you ask, and we are going to get these questions published as well, so it really can go through your questions you ask after the session is over. Okay, so we try to answer those, but you know, it's a lot right now. Toby, is there any question you like to point out? Anything which is very important to share?
Yes, I've as you mentioned, we've tried to respond to as many as we can. There are some good questions that we'll definitely get answers to through updating our docs, and also, as Severin mentioned, as an FAQ. There are also a number of questions that we already have answers for on docs. So head over to the Dual Right homepage and start there. But yeah, most definitely great questions, and we'll look to answer those in the FAQ that we're about to publish.
Okay, cool. I think that's it. We can close this TechTalk, Evan. And again, thanks for raising questions. Your questions are highly appreciated. We will take a look to them, and please expect this Q&A being published on the TechTalk, and we are working to move that questions into a Q&A on Docs, so that really all the questions are getting answered, and those questions are helping us really to drive functionality, to drive the directions of product and functionalities we are creating. So, you know, keep your questions coming. Thank you for joining. Evan, up to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Severin. We would love to get your feedback on today's session. I've posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel, and we value your feedback and welcome your input on how we did today and what you would like to see in future sessions. The survey scores on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score possible, and we thank you for your participation in that. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and a thank you to our audience for logging in and joining us today. Please stay safe and have a great rest of your day or evening wherever you are. Goodbye.